Recently, I made a video all about coasting. I'll leave a link to that video up there if you're interested. Many people in the comments pointed out that I didn't mention how coasting can help you save fuel, therefore helping the environment and even helping you save a little bit of money. So here we are. Can coasting really save fuel? Let's find out. Firstly, a quick demonstration on coasting. At the moment, I am not coasting. I'm in gear with the clutch up. If I press the gas pedal, I accelerate. If I come off the gas pedal, I slow down. So the gas pedal is controlling the speed of the car. However, if I hold the clutch down, I'm now coasting and the gas pedal no longer controls the speed of the car. You can see the revs go up and down, but the speed of the car is unaffected. What does slow the car down though is the brakes. They still work and air resistance is slowing me down. Road resistance is slowing me down and the hill can also slow me down, which is why I'm gradually slowing down here. It's quite flat, but there is some air resistance and road resistance. If it was downhill, if the hill was steep enough, I may actually be speeding up. Another way to coast is to put it into neutral. That way you can come off the clutch. You're still coasting, except you're not wearing the clutch release bearing, which is also known as the clutch thrust bearing or throw out bearing. I'm going slightly uphill now, which is why the car is slowing down just a little bit more. I'm now on my way to a downhill section of road where this car maintains 29 miles an hour when coasting. I'll coast to that section of road and make note of the fuel economy. Then I'll do the same section of road again in gear with the cruise control set to 29 miles an hour, and then we can compare the economy. I'm now approaching a downhill section of road where this car will maintain 29 miles an hour when coasting. It's going to start at this tree on the left. I'm going to get 29 miles an hour, there we go, and now I'm coasting. Let's see what the fuel economy is. The constant fuel economy is reading 220 at the moment, around about 220, 230, and I'll finish it at this 30 sign. So between that tree and that 30 sign, this car was getting between 220 and 230 miles to the gallon. I'm now going to go back and do that exact same section of road again, but without coasting. I'm going to use fourth gear because that's the appropriate economy gear at 29 miles an hour in this car. And I'm going to use the cruise control so that I maintain a steady 29 miles an hour like I did when I was coasting. Cruise control is better at maintaining a steady speed than I am, and it will help me get a consistent reading for the fuel economy. Approaching the tree now, just slowing the car down. I'm in fourth gear. Cruise control now set to 29 miles an hour. Let's see what happens. Going past the tree now. Fuel economy is 100, 110, 112, 110, and we're at the 30 sign now. So there you go. Coasting was getting me around about 220 miles to the gallon, whereas when I wasn't coasting and I was using fourth gear, I was only getting around about 110 miles to the gallon. So coasting was using half the fuel of not coasting. But it's not quite that simple. Let's try the exact same experiment on a different hill. Steeper section of hill this time. I'm going to coast at 29 miles an hour to keep it consistent with last time. I'm going to measure it from this white wall here, trying to stay at 29. Got 200 miles to the gallon there, 204, 203, 217, and now I'm having a brake for the bend. The fuel economy on that steeper section of hill whilst coasting was similar to the fuel economy on the less steep section of hill, and there's no surprise there because I was doing 29 miles an hour both times with the engine at idle, and the engine's using the same amount of fuel as it does when it idles on both occasions, regardless of how steep the hill is, and I'm doing 29 miles an hour, so the fuel economy is going to be very similar. But I had to dab the brake every so often to stop it going over 29 miles an hour. Not so much brake that I was worried I would overheat the brakes, I didn't really use them much at all. What will be interesting now, if I do it again in fourth gear with the cruise control set to 29 miles an hour, will I use less fuel or do I need an even steeper hill? Cruise control set to 29 miles an hour in fourth gear, not coasting, approaching the same section of white wall here. At that section of wall now, so measuring the fuel consumption, no fuel. No fuel being used, no fuel being used. Now I'm braking for the bend. Same hill, but this time zero fuel. The trip computer was displaying a blank, and that's because no fuel was being used. It cannot calculate miles to the gallon when there's only miles and no gallons. No fuel is being used. Gravity was pulling the car down the hill, turning the wheels and turning the engine. The engine was no longer running off of fuel, it was running off of gravity. And that's why on steeper hills, it's actually more fuel efficient to be in gear and using engine braking to keep you slow than coasting. Because when you're coasting, the engine still needs fuel to keep itself turning. But when you're going down a hill, gravity keeps the engine turning. This car's continuous fuel economy meter will also display a blank if I'm stationary, because when I'm stationary, I'm not doing any miles, I'm only using gallons. Therefore, the computer cannot calculate miles to the gallon because there's no miles. So if you're stationary in your car and it's showing a blank on your continuous fuel economy, that doesn't mean you're using no fuel. That's actually the least efficient way to use your car. How about I try the exact same thing in a different car? My Mazda MX5 gives me a lot more engine braking, so it will be interesting to see how that compares. I apologise for the car being so dirty. A couple of days ago I took it on a drift circuit and I haven't had a chance to clean it. If you're interested in that video, I'll leave a link in the top right hand corner of your screen. So approaching the not so steep hill now, going to coast it. So I'm coasting now. Get the speed to 29 miles an hour and start measuring the fuel economy from this tree again. So it's at 29 miles an hour at the tree now, 99.9 miles to the gallon, 99.9, 99.9. That's as high as it can read. It can't read any higher than that. Let's see what it's like when I'm not coasting. This time I'm going to use fifth gear because fifth gear is the equivalent to fourth in my other car, the Seat Leon. I'm going to get it to 29 miles an hour and set the cruise control. There we go, set to 29, and I'll measure it from the tree again. So the tree's coming up. It's already saying 99, oh no, yeah, 99.9 miles to the gallon, still 99.9. Doesn't look like I'm going to get a good reading on this car because the fuel economy meter doesn't read high enough for me to compare. Unfortunately, I can't use this car for this experiment because the fuel economy meter only goes up to 99.9 miles per gallon, and I'm getting more than that when I'm coasting and not coasting anyway, so I have no comparison. I'm going to try another experiment now. I'm going to drive on a longer stretch of downhill road and get an average fuel economy figure whilst coasting as much as I can. I won't be able to coast all of it. I will have to use the accelerator to try and keep the speed that I want. And then I'll do the same bit of road again, but without coasting, trying to maintain a similar speed. I'm going to start that test at a mirror on the left. There's a mirror here. When I reach that mirror, I'll reset the fuel economy meter. So, coming up to the mirror, pressing the button now. So I'm holding it down, it's reset. I think I can coast now. I'm going fast enough, so I will coast. Still don't need power. Little bit of brake for this bend. Off the brake now. Still don't need power. Just letting it coast. Speeding up, 45 miles an hour. So I've been between 40 and 45 here. That's what I'll have to do next time. Feeling like it's slowing down a little bit now, but I have a 30 coming up, and that's the finish line. I think I need a gear and some gas now. Stop it slowing down too quickly. There we go, I'm in fourth, going up the hill, getting to the finish line now, using some power, and that is 136 as I crossed the finish line. It went to 126 just after I went past the 30 sign. Now it's time to try the same stretch of road without coasting. I'm going to stay in gear, use the highest gear possible to save fuel and try and keep the speed the same. So I'm going to go up to sixth gear now, getting near the mirror, holding the button down now. Reset. So I remember doing around about 45 here, roughly what I'm doing now, slowing down to 40 here, and then the car gradually sped up to somewhere between 45 and 50 on this straight. Not really needing much gas for that to happen. A little bit of gas now to stop it slowing down, having to use the gas to stop it slowing down. Now I'm slowing down for the 30, I'm off the power. I'm going to go down into fourth gear, near the finish line now, adding some power, and 107 as I cross the finish line. The speed was not exactly the same, but the best I could do. That was less efficient. So coasting there was actually more efficient. To summarise, is coasting more fuel efficient? Well, it can be. If you're on a hill that's not very steep, coasting can save you fuel. But if you're on a steeper hill, then you're better off leaving it in gear and letting gravity turn the engine instead of your fuel turning the engine. I need to make a very important point. Coasting in this manner is not accepted on the UK driving test, and you will fail. It's because you don't have as much control over the vehicle. When you're going downhill, you're not using the engine to keep the car slow, you're only using the brakes, so you can overheat the brakes. When the brakes get too hot, they don't work as well. And if you're not in gear, you're not ready to go. You put your foot on the gas pedal, the car doesn't accelerate, which is why you have less control when you're coasting. However, I know there are many people around the world, and I know this from the comments on my channel, who use coasting to save fuel. And their arguments would be, when you're going down a hill that's not very steep, you're not putting much heat into the brakes anyway. And that's very true. That's a very good point. And if you're in a high gear and you want to accelerate quickly, in most cars, you're not going to accelerate quickly. Not much at all. It does depend on the car you're in. If you're in a really powerful car, yeah, in the top gear, you might still get some push. But in most everyday cars, if you're in an economical gear, you put your foot hard on the gas and the car doesn't really accelerate. So you still have to change gear if you want to accelerate quickly in an urgent situation anyway. Well, I hope this video helps. If you think it does, please give it a thumbs up. Check out Collingwood and Confused in the description if you're looking for insurance. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, Collingwood are there to help you, because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy. And at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card via the link. If you want to insure your own car, check out confused.com, because you fill out one quote form, get loads of quotes back to compare who's cheapest, and you can change the car on that quote as many times as you like to compare how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.